go up to the meat aisle and see what I can find. It was there. I found a beautiful 1.5 kilo brisket. I decided that the best way to do brisket is barbecue, or barbecue style, should I say. I looked up a recipe online. The link will be in the description, as I am an awful chef and I have no idea what I'm doing, so I stole this recipe. So if you want to follow the steps, the link will be in the description. Anyways, I bought all the ingredients I needed for this recipe. I had everything I needed. I went home, and the day before I was going to cook, I decided to get the meat rub ready. Now this recipe that I used, it says that you could use anywhere up to no time at all to 24 hours to let this rub sink into the meat. I decided to, let that job work, really let those spices sink into the meat. So 9 AM Wednesday, I have college in the morning. I decided to wake up early so I could get this rub done and let this meat rest in the fridge and let the spices infuse into the meat. The ingredients for the rub were brown sugar, paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, teaspoon of cumin, mustard powder, salt, and black pepper. I mixed all these spices up and gave my meat a good old rub, covering all sides, all edges, making sure that it was beautifully seasoned, as you can see in the picture. The meat turned a beautiful colour. I then let it rest in the fridge for the next day, where in 6:30 in the morning. I woke up at 6:30 in the morning for college. It was time to put the meat in, but may I mention that the previous night as well, I made the barbecue sauce, which consisted of 2 garlic cloves, apple cider vinegar, ketchup, brown sugar, black pepper, onion powder, mustard powder, cayenne pepper, and Worcestershire sauce. I mixed all of those in the slow cooker, combining all the beautiful ingredients. Once I did so, I grabbed a teaspoon and had a taste.
Till it's cool, just cool, into the mouth. Nice.
I felt the flavours buzz in my mouth, coating everywhere. It was wonderful. Like I said, the next morning, I get the meat out from the fridge. The aroma coming from this brisket, I could not describe. It was wonderful. It was simply wonderful. So what I did, I put the meat into the slow cooker. It submerges. I fit it in tightly into the slow cooker, submerging it into the barbecue sauce. I use a spoon and cover the top and any parts that were showing that weren't submerged in the sauce. I then let it on low setting on the slow cooker and went to college. I arrived back from college, tired, but looking forward to this brisket. The time was around 6 PM. I opened the lid of the slow cooker, and wow, the smell, the aroma that was coming off this meat, it was beautiful. You could smell that tangy barbecue sauce really punching through, and the beef, wow, incredible. The liquids of the brisket, the fat, all combined with the sauce, and it became very liquidy, to my surprise. was everywhere. I had to be very careful how I maneuvered this meat. I tried a little bit, and wow, tender, succulent, beautiful. It was all I could ever dreamed of in a brisket. The next step was to heat up the oven to 200 degrees Celsius, or for you Americans, 390 degrees Fahrenheit. I drizzled it with olive oil and put it in the oven for 15 minutes. Here is another angle of the meat so you can see what it looked like after it came out. The juices that were in the slow cooker, the fat, the meat juices combined with the barbecue sauce, turned into a flavoursome battle. I then poured the liquid into a pot, put it on the stove, heated it up on a medium-high temperature, and let it boil down, simmer, to a nice syrupy consistency. I gave it a taste.
Till it's cool, just cool, into the mouth. Nice.
And the flavours were infused so well together. It was fantastic. I then turned off the stove and put the meat in the oven when the oven was warmed up to temperature. The barbecue sauce thickened even more when it cooled down, so don't worry if yours is a bit liquidy even after simmering for a while. Let it cool down and it will thicken up, I promise you. And if that doesn't work, try adding a bit of corn flour like I did. Anyway, I came out beautiful caramelization on the meat. As you saw in the previous pictures, it looked quite wet, which obviously was the reason because it was soaking in that barbecue sauce. So after it came out, I basted it in the barbecue sauce one time. I put it back in for 5 minutes. As you can see here, the beautiful browning on the meat. It was looking wonderful, and the smell coming out of the oven was extravagant. I basted it again with the barbecue sauce, adding another layer of flavour to tantalise the tongue. I take it out, I look at the meat, and from my judgment, it still looked a bit wet, which wasn't a bad thing, but I wanted my meat on the outside to be crisp and caramelised. So I put it back in for another 5 minutes. These times may vary for your meat depending on the size and weight, but you tell what's best for you. After I did that, I knew that the brisket was ready. Everything was perfect. The caramelization process was complete, and the meat was wonderful, crisp on the outside. I cut into the meat. Wow. Right in the middle. Immediately, I'm fascinated by the amount of juices coming out from this meat. I thought it maybe be a bit of a dry brisket, but I was totally wrong. The juices were exploding out, and the colour of the beef cooked to perfection. As you can see in this image, a more close-up variation, you can see the meat glistening from the juices, and you can see the wonderful lines of fat in this meat. As you can tell by the bottom, it was so tender, it was just shredding by the touch. For me, I decided I wanted to put this in some bread rolls, to really complement the flavour. Keep it simple. I got bread rolls out and sat them on a plate. I got some barbecue sauce and used the spoon to spoon it on to the bottom of the bread rolls, and using the back of the spoon to spread it out. As you can see while cutting this meat, bits were falling off, and you can tell that the meat was shredding so well, so easily, you'd think it was Van Halen. Anyway, I cut into it, decided to give it more of a shred. The other one, a clean cut. I placed it onto the bun. I then added some more barbecue sauce on the top to give it even more of a flavour kick. I placed the buns on top, and as you can see, wonderful. Here's one cut in half. You can see the cross section of the meat shredding there, perfectly tender, falling apart in the bun. The bun's still beautifully intact and not going soggy. It is a wonderful combination. Afterwards, I decided to shred all of the meat and combine it with all the barbecue sauce left in the pot to give a real pulled pork-esque feeling, but really it's pulled brisket. I suggest putting this in buns. You could also use it in wraps. As a review, the cayenne pepper really gave it a nice kick, and some might find it a bit spicy, but it's completely up to you. You give it a try, you see how you feel. If you think it's a bit too hot, maybe add some yogurt, cool it down a bit. If you don't think it's hot enough, maybe a bit more cayenne pepper, chili powder. It's really up to you. Whatever you think works best with the brisket works for you. Try new flavours, experiment, see what works. And anyway, I'll now give a review of the meal itself. And now I shall get into the taste test part. So I hope you guys enjoy. Wow. I'm in utter awe, really. The barbecue sauce works so beautifully well with the brisket. It's such a great combo. The meat shredded perfectly, and it just works so well with the soft white bun, encapsulating the whole star of the show, really shining. The meat, the flavours, the barbecue sauce, tangy, even a bit spicy, and it works so well. The rub that I put on the meat before it got into the slow cooker is blended perfectly, and you can really taste all those individual flavours in the meat, as well as the barbecue sauce. The meat juices that came out of it during the cooking process have combined with all those barbecue sauce flavours and just really made for such a great meal. I'm really happy with this, and I hope this video will be really educational for you guys, and I hope you enjoy, and there'll be more to come. But this has been Clarence's first episode of the Meat Chronicles, episode 1, Brisket.